All right, welcome back, everyone. This week we're going to be going over this week and next week. We're going to be going over chapter 22. So this is the intro to the subjunctive mood. So basically, we're going to be learning a lot about the different forms of the subjunctive. So essentially, there are four forms: the present, imperfect, perfect, and pluperfect. You don't have to worry about the future tenses with the subjunctive because they don't really exist. And so we're going to talk a lot about the forms, the general idea of what the subjunctive is as a mood, and also some of the examples of what a subjunctive verb can do in independent clauses. Um, we're not going to be talking about some of the more the subjunctive is a pretty versatile. Well, let me rephrase that. The subjunctive is pretty versatile, especially in the way it functions in dependent clauses. We're not going to be getting to that this semester, but if you stick around for Latin 203, then you could definitely learn a lot more about what this particular verbal mood can do. So, without further ado, I will go ahead and progress further into the PowerPoint. So, my first slide is just what is the subjunctive? And what I'd like to talk about just basically is just the etymology of the word first. So if you notice that it's based off of sub is our typical preposition, sub under, and then junct. So this is from junctus and sub. And if you remember, junctus is from jungo, to be joined together. So even in derivation, etymologically, the subjunctive means to be joined together with something, or to be locked in, or to be connected to. We're going to see that it's actually there are other uses of the subjunctive, particularly in chapter 22, that aren't dependent on another clause, but it is definitely true that the subjunctive is primarily based on how it functions with other main verbs. Let's keep going. So the verbal mood, I'd like to just do a little bit of definition work right now. We'll talk about exactly what mood is and what it means for us when we talk about verbs. So verbal mood, we haven't really talked about it a lot, but there's a couple different things that we have kind of mentioned already. In terms of Latin, we've seen the indicative mood and also the imperative mood. There's a couple more. I don't want to hang too long on this point, but the subjunctive is also our third mood. So, just in terms of what we've seen so far, that's what this means. But really, what the verbal mood means for grammar and for translation is it is the mode or manner in which one speaks or writes. And I say speak or write because language can be spoken or written. Obviously, we only have the written form of Latin, but more generally, it's speaking or writing. So as our mood, as the mode changes, I think it's similar to how one's particular mood or their manner of being for a certain day. So I have a couple examples here of just different emojis. As your mood changes, whether from you're happy or you're sad or crying or angry, it changes your disposition. You know, you're still the same person, but how you act and how you feel changes quite a bit. And this guy has a mustache, so I just want to point that out. That's pretty cool. But it's also another way of maybe illustrating it is with a mood ring. The way that I'm not sure if you all are familiar with this concept, but you can use a mood ring, and it supposedly or purportedly can tell you what your particular mood is for that day, based off your body temperature. I think is the way it works. But either way, a person can have a mood in the same way that a verb can also have a mood. So when we talk about physical people or humans mood, we talk about sad or happy. But when we talk about verbal mood, we talk about how exactly that verb is, what exactly it's doing. Is it stating something as a fact? Is it giving a command? Or is it doing something else? And that is where the subjunctive mood comes in. So here's a quick example of, in English, just an indicative statement. The farmer loves his pig. So our verbal mood here is just indicative. It's a statement of fact. It's nothing, there's no doubt inherent within this. It's just straight, complete, as it is. And we can also see that indicative isn't necessarily just a sentence like this, but it can also be a question. So you could also rephrase it as, does the farmer love his pig? And that would also be indicative. The verb still here is indicative. It doesn't necessarily make a difference if it's a question or just a general statement. But we also have a second mood in Latin that we've seen so far, and that is the imperative. So I'll just number these, 1, 2. In our imperative, as it's from the verb, you can see here impero, which means to give a command or to give an order. That's exactly how it functions as well. It isn't necessarily stating something as a fact, the farmer loves his pig, but it's telling some farmer, hey, farmer, love your pig. So just as a person might be happy or sad, our verb can also be, rather than being an indicative statement of fact, it can also be a command. So, hey, farmer, I'm not sure if you love your pig or not, but please love your pig. So there's our second option for verbal mood. And then as we see in this chapter, we're also going to get the subjunctive. So our third mood is the subjunctive. And I put a few different types of examples here just because I want to go over the sort of a few of the different ways that we could talk about subjunctive mood. And it's a pretty, like I said before, it's a pretty versatile class of verb. There's quite a few different meanings that this mood can have. So I just wanted to show kind of a few examples, and this is by no means exhaustive. This is just several different types of ways that we can talk about it. So one way to say it is but the basic idea is that the subjunctive represents what is hypothetical or unreal. So something that isn't necessarily a fact, but it's something that's either doubtful, a condition of, a deliberation. It could be maybe at some point, but it isn't necessarily the case at that point in time of the verb. So this first example, I wish that the farmer would love his pig. So let's just think about what exactly is the difference between the indicative version here and the subjunctive version here. We'll talk more about the how we might write this in Latin later, but really the idea is pretty simple, just kind of getting the main purpose of what this wish could be. So instead of, the farmer is not actually currently loving his pig. It doesn't necessarily say whether he is or not. This is just the author or someone suggesting that the farmer should love his pig, and it's something that they want a whole lot. It's not necessarily a thing that is happening or ever will definitely happen. It just simply is a wish, something that they want to happen. And then we also have another type of example, a condition. We're not going to talk about these this semester, but it's important just to see sort of some of the various ways that the subjunctive can also happen. So if the farmer would love his pig, I would be happy. So just to break this down a little bit, we have our condition here. So this is the thing that should take place. If this thing takes place, then this one will take place as well. So assuming that the farmer loves his pig, I would be happy. So that's one way to think about this. So, um, but note that our verb in this is also the subjunctive, because it's not necessarily a statement of fact that the farmer loves his pig. It's just that if the farmer ever does love his pig, then I would be happy. So there's no factual information here. It's just an expression of condition. So that's one potential way that we can talk about it as well. There's also a couple more, which are called deliberation and potential. So deliberation is this idea of the person, really what the basis of this idea is doubt. Does the subject, or does the person verbing, does that person believe in, or does he, she, or whatever is the subject, have any doubt about the statement of something? So one way that we can express this is should. Should the farmer love his pig? Or another way that you'll see it written is you can say, is the farmer to love? So that's another way of sort of phrasing it in English, but it's still the same idea. Is the subject is having some doubts, or he, she, or it is deliberating about this action. So is the farmer to love his pig? Should the farmer love his pig? It's the same idea. It's an expression of doubt or a hypothetical situation. And then our final little example, not necessarily exhaustive list, but this is just one other way, is potential. So the farmer may love his pig. So in this situation, again, we don't necessarily have a statement of fact. We just have some general potential situation, depending on some other circumstance. It doesn't necessarily have to be given, but we can have this just stand on its own as well. The farmer would love his pig, or the farmer may. But notice that we could essentially stick any number of different modal types of verbs in English to achieve this. So the farmer would love his pig, the farmer may, the farmer should. So there are different ways of expressing this potentiality. But overall, I'm going to end the video soon because we're running at around 12 minutes. But I think the main idea behind this is getting that the subjunctive is just another way of expressing information. It isn't necessarily a statement of fact or a command, but it's something that is generally hypothetical or an unreal situation. So in the next video, I'll talk a little more about how we can form the subjunctive in Latin, and also look at some more examples. All right, thank you.